Stuff I found interesting.
Cool. So this is the segment of the podcast where we literally just talk about whatever we felt happened that was interesting during the week. And the first one to kick us off is a film on Netflix that has kind of been shown in a couple of smaller cinemas, and it's called Marriage Story. Barry, have you heard about this one?
I haven't at all. I've heard nothing about it. So when I saw it on the list again, I'm very excited to hear about what it's all about. I'm assuming marriage in some way.
Absolutely. So to be honest, I hadn't heard of it, and it was actually brought to my attention by one of our listeners. So we could have put it in the What's on Your Mind section, but I was just going to put it this side instead. And yeah, essentially, you're completely right. It's a movie about marriage, and more importantly, a movie showing the trauma that is experienced on all sides of a divorce. I found the movie incredibly authentic. I found it really real. It stars sort of Scarlett Johansson and a really good cast otherwise. And I'm really shocked that it's just on Netflix. It's kind of got, I think, 6 Golden Globe nominations. And yeah, definitely some high accolades there. So I would certainly recommend giving it a watch. Let's just talk about a couple of the key themes here. So divorce is something that's obviously very traumatic for all sides of any family, and this just really a sincere story showcasing you through every single stage of that trauma. So 2 people who get together for the right reasons, fall in love, and ultimately through the marriage start to kind of fall apart. The interesting thing for this film that I felt was that each party has their own reasons, and they're both really good people. I wouldn't say any one party has been portrayed as, you know, the guilty party in this marriage, but certainly I think the key theme here is to kind of remember the reasons for getting married. So, you know, kind of key concepts like compromise, equality. This is a story of a guy who kind of got selfish over time, and he sort of lost sight of his wife's inner yearns. So yeah, basically just a story of really how that all happens, how lawyers get involved. It wasn't ever their intention to do that, but as soon as lawyers get involved, it just escalates so quickly. All of a sudden, demons of the past are brought into the courtroom in the worst way possible. And right at the end of the film, you realize it's all completely unnecessary. So yeah, I thought it was a fascinating film to watch. And also kind of at the end, you know, you kind of, as you ponder through what you just watched, I think you definitely start to question the power of separation. Sometimes I think that's a useful tool as well. And it definitely portrays to us how divorce is seen sometimes as the only option when there is another tool that is that of separation. And certainly at the end of this journey, both parties, you know, still in love with each other, but have now moved on. And obviously this journey that's past them. So yeah, I think let's just unpack this a little bit. You know, what are your sort of thoughts on marriage generally, Barry, and divorce?
Yeah, I think it's one of life's biggest challenges, right? I think getting into a marriage is very, very challenging for both parties because humans are complicated. Humans are really, really complicated, and humans are flawed. And we bring all of the baggage and all of the trauma of previous relationships and childhood and family relationships to that marriage. And often we're looking for someone to solve our own problems. And that's a terrible place to start in any marriage or any relationship for that matter, is that looking for someone to solve your problem. For me, the way I think about it is that 2 people are coming together to build something in between, build a relationship together. They're not trying to become one thing, and they're not trying to rely on each other for absolutely everything in every circumstance. And so, obviously, I'm not married yet, and I'm quite far from marriage, so it's hard to speak with any real authority. But that's kind of the conception that I have. When you think about divorce, I think an interesting concept that I've come across in the last couple of months is similar to separation. It's something called conscious uncoupling. And I read a wonderful blog post about it, talking about how sometimes people fall in love and they're in love for a period of time and everything is great. And then, as you say, things sort of fall apart slowly but surely. And what conscious uncoupling tries to define or articulate is that sometimes 2 people realize that they'll be happier without each other, or happier not in that relationship. And so instead of seeing a separation as this traumatic end to something that destroys everyone's lives and really like wreaks havoc throughout all the families and the children and whatnot, Can two mature adults realize that they're not good for each other or something has gone wrong? And can they uncouple themselves in a positive and healthy way, which allows them to move forward in their lives, understanding that they're both doing it in their own best interests? And that's an interesting concept because that requires a level of vulnerability and a level of like communication between two partners that we very rarely see. It's so hard because there's so much emotion involved, there's so much investment of time and energy and effort, and often the people have the sunk cost fallacy where they've invested years and years of their life into this person, and to all of a sudden think about, oh, I'm going to throw all of that away now and start again, that's a terrifying prospect. Especially when that prospect is potentially to be lonely for a little bit of time while you're trying to figure things out. But I find the concept of conscious uncoupling really, really powerful and beautiful in a way. That emotional maturity to be able to see that this is not working and it's not good for either of us is really, really special. Unfortunately, that situation is quite rare because people get angry and defensive, and obviously they're so emotionally invested that these things happen. And as you say, when lawyers get involved, things get even messier. But I think that it calls for more emotional maturity. The more emotionally mature we are, the more secure we are in the fact that we aren't perfect, that we are flawed, that we can't do everything right, there are things that go wrong and life happens. I think the more we can understand that, the better position we are to actually make the better choice for ourselves. And if that means separating, that means separating. If that means figuring it out and fighting through the rough times, that's what it means. And every situation is different in that regard. Chad, I know you're getting married in a little bit of time, so I'm sure this resonates with you. So, like, what are you thinking about as you look towards your marriage in the future?
Well, that's the thing. So I thought it was a fascinating film, as I said, just because of how authentic it was. So yeah, it certainly brings into perspective, as you said, the reasons for getting married, the good things. I think important thing is to, at any point of difficulty throughout the marriage, you need to kind of come back to those core reasons. And I think that's an important tool that I think a lot of people lose sight of. No marriage is going to be perfect. And I think that is also another reality that everyone needs to, be aware of. And yeah, I mean, just in terms of, I think how generationally divorce has become a lot more popular, and yeah, people seem to be giving in a lot easier. I certainly think we need to learn lessons from our older generations, where you hear these great stories of my grandparents, as an example, being together for sort of 40 years or so. And yeah, I think those are really good stories to hold on to. And I think, as I said, just keeping true to the reasons why you got married in the first place. As I said, this film is really emotional. I would definitely recommend watching it. The thing that was interesting for me is, this is it's not one of those attention-grabbing topics. It's not like an action film where you are glued to the screen at all times. Yet, I feel like the way that it has been done, I felt like I needed to watch it through at every point in the film, and yeah, would certainly recommend giving it a watch. The writer and director, a guy by the name of Noah Baumbach, got divorced a little while back, so there's hints that this film was potentially his way of portraying that experience, but yeah, certainly worth giving it a watch, especially if it's just on Netflix.
You've certainly sold me, Chad. I'm adding it to my list right now. And just chatting about the writer a little bit, I think that it's a dirty little secret in the world of art and the world of creative expression that we always do imbue our own stories into what we create, right? It's impossible to create something that's really authentic without imbuing some of our own emotion and our own story. So I'm sure there's plenty of his divorce in that movie as well. And I'm really excited to go and check it out and see what it's all about.
Definitely let me know what you have to think about it.
Across the pond.